The autumn winds move like the thunderous waves of Neptune's sacred palace. And here, amongst the blackened soil, lies the ragged hands, worn, torn, and callous. They await with cunning and vicious prowess, for the warriors have returned.
Come on, Tiger! Don't do it! Woo! No way! Woo! 85! Crying out loud! You're making me driving me nuts!
Hello, all you Gridiron fanatics out there. Glad you could be here with us for another episode of Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Where we gab about all things pro football, from the scoops of the regular season to the scores in the postseason and the picks of the off season. Let's start gabbing.
Crying out loud! You're making me driving me nuts!
But behold, there is a warm breeze that comes from the west. The blazing sounds of victory fuel their everlasting quest. It is a call to arms, for they are here. An army that has the will to challenge and the will to dare.
Welcome back, all you Gridiron fanatics out there. Glad to be back with you on Gridiron Gab. This is Mr. CeeLo here. Here we are at the beginning of preseason. We got one game down with 31 days until opening kickoff. I am just as excited as you guys are. And near season approaching rapidly comes a large wave of news as well. A lot of it's been coming out of Cincinnati. The Bengals, as we found out yesterday, locked up Logan Wilson, inking him for a 4-year extension worth up to $37.25 million. Of course, the deal ensures critical pieces of the middle of Cincinnati's defense remain long term, but there's still bigger things they got to take care of course. Meaning, you guys know who that is. But Wilson was a huge part of that defense. Very good in the middle of that defense. That still doesn't excuse the fact that they let Jesse Bates just walk. Von Bell, but Jesse Bates was one of the leaders, of the really efficient leaders of that defense. But Logan Wilson had a really good idea for what it was. He said, I still think that this contract allows them to get those things done with those guys. And those guys referring to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow. And hopefully we're able to keep them long term as well. Which is a very good attitude to have, especially given that your defense is an afterthought. But that's not saying that Cincinnati's defense has not been good. They've got a storied history of shutting out Kansas City. Kansas City always been able to put up a certain number of points on the Bengals defense. And then, of course, Cincinnati's tremendous defensive coordinator who does not hardly get the credit he deserves, Lou Anarumo. I hope I'm saying that right, correctly. My apologies, Coach. He's done a phenomenal job, and Kansas City's not been able to do much in the second half. I think they were just able to score more than a field goal in this last AFC title game, and that's why I'm not a person that really feels that Kansas City needs to be running around gloating like they're just unbeatable. As far as I'm concerned, Joe Burrow is 3-1 against Mahomes, and you have some people like a Shady McCoy who will say this is not a rivalry because there's not Super Bowls involved. Well, if they're playing for AFC title games, that means the route is going through there. But that's another conversation. I think the Bengals are doing just by signing this guy back. Their defense is still going to be locked in and pretty efficient. Just need to get those big pieces, as we alluded to earlier. They're going to have to get these guys signed. I don't think Joe Burrow will be a problem. And people are going to say, oh, how do you figure that? Joe Burrow strikes me as a guy that's all about keeping his pieces and keeping the team around. And we've already heard him quote himself saying, which kind of leads me to the topic at hand. Cincinnati Bengals kind of built this team in a way in which you're starting to see other teams start to do, build with number ones. Not just get a great elite receiver and then, hey, well, we'll get one in the third or fourth and fifth round, or maybe free agency, one that's past his prime and he can be a good number two. Not talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, if you recall, drafted Joe Burrow. Then they took T. Higgins. Remember, they had the number 1 pick, then they had the 33rd pick. Okay, don't forget, they had the 33rd pick. And surprisingly, this was a shock to me. As good as T. Higgins was at Clemson, 6'5". I think people forget how big this guy is until they see him going up for those 50-50 balls. And he's made this an art form. This is something that T. Higgins takes personally. He calls them 80-20 or 70-30 balls. But back to the point. They took him in the second round of the 2020, and then they 2020, and then they take Jamar Chase with the 5th pick. That's how a lot of your analysts were looking around like, what did they just do here? And I remember this vividly because I said, this guy sat out. The only question I had about Jamar Chase was he missed 1 year of football. Was he going to be able to acclimate himself to the pro game after sitting the speed of the NFL, after missing a full season of not playing football, even at the college level? But he comes in and is inhibited by a couple of drops during the first part of, I think it's the first couple of games and the first couple of preseason games. There was worry about everybody outside of Cincinnati. Everybody except the Bengals understood what this guy was capable, especially Joe Burrow. But instead of taking Penei Sewell, which 90% of analysts and sports writers said, I wish I would have been here because I told my guy that Jamar Chase was the guy. Quarterback, wide receiver. That was probably the most potent quarterback to wide receiver duo we had seen in ages. That Clemson game, when they got down, it was just like, oh, let me throw it to this sophomore. Let me just throw it to the sophomore. Yeah, he was a sophomore at LSU. But the point is, you're starting to see teams that may not necessarily go after the quarterback's favorite target in college. But what you're starting to see is teams that say, okay, if we're going to get a top tier quarterback, he's got to have a top tier target. I.e., which is if Houston were smart, Marvin Harrison Jr., just a thought, D'Amico Ryan's just a thought. Anyway, the strategy, according to Ben Baby of the ESPN staff, he says the strategy has helped yield a top 5 pass offense since the start of 2021. Higgins and Chase have amassed more than 46 combined receiving yards, more than any other pairing during that span. Their elite production underscores a larger trend. In a league that revolves around the passing game, good offenses are ones that tend to have multiple quality receivers, and the Bengals have 2 of the best. I don't like the fact that he said quality, because they're in the National Football League, so the quality is there. The question is elite. That's a bad word to use there, Ben. Elite. Cincinnati did not just get Joe Burrow average guys. The Bengals went and got elite guys. Now the question is, are the Bengals going to say, okay, we're going to tee up and we're going to do this again in the draft, or are we going to keep this chemistry here, continuously building, and we're going to go with it? Now, see, I would venture to say, had the Packers been more open-minded and said, hey, we're going to get Aaron Rodgers an elite wide receiver to go with Devontae Adams. See, this is why the Cincinnati Bengals are the first, or one of the first, I would say, in the modern age, if you will. They are the first in the modern age because now you don't see teams that say, hey, you need 2 number ones. And the beauty of it is they did it in the draft. And that's how you do it. Not only you build a rapport, but you get to do it at less expense. Now, with the shortfall is you got to pay them big later on. But here's the other thing. These two guys are very, very selfless. Very, very selfless. But then you also have to throw in the fact that you're talking about the duos of, you're just talking about duos. You're not even talking about trios. There's not a trio out there that matches Chase, Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. And see, you go and you talk about the Tyreek Hills and the Jalen Waddles or the A.J. Browns and Devontae Smiths. Wait, make sure you go by Gridiron Gab and take our poll. We got the top trios, and now these guys are just receivers. I had to dig out a tight end for the rest of these guys, like for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I had to add Dallas Goedert. Actually, people forget about Keenan Allen and Mike Williams in the Chargers with Quentin Johnston. I had to throw Johnston in because he is an elite wide receiver. He hasn't proven yet, but I believe he's going to be that guy. Of course, Robbie Anderson or Robbie Chosen is in Miami. And, of course, for Diggs and Davis, people forgot about that. Davis is the guy that had, I think it was 3 or 4 touchdowns in a game. So you can't say he's not an elite guy. He's not elite, but he's there. But I honestly think Boyd, Chase, and Higgins, that's not even a comparison. But as we said, that I think Cincinnati started a trend that a lot of teams are going to try with these new quarterbacks, possibly see if they can't get, because honestly, Higgins was a steal. I want you to hear me. Higgins was a steal. A lot of people say you can get a first-round wide receiver in the second round. Yeah, rare. The NFL and all 32 teams snoozed on this guy. I remember when this guy was being drafted, I was like, they let him fall down the board? No way. Now, T. Higgins is not the fastest guy, but he ain't slow. He's not as fast as Jamar Chase. But the guy, once he gets going, he's got these long strides, but once he gets it going, he can run with the best of them. And then he has that high point. Also, Jamar Chase. But don't forget Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd's another guy that's coming up on his contract. I think he takes a pay cut to stay with the team because he understands that he is the sprinkle on top of a cake. But let me know what you guys think about Logan Wilson being signed and wanting to help build this franchise and keep the money on the books, so that they can keep Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. Won't you guys please go by my Instagram and check out the other shows that I'm involved in, and leave a comment. I'm going to leave the comments for this up too as well about the top trio in the NFL, in my opinion. That's Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, as well as what do you think about the Cincinnati Bengals being able to get Logan Wilson to sign for $37 25, and his comments about keeping the team together. But check me out over at Instagram, and as well, go to the Gridiron Gab Facebook page, leave a comment, take the poll that I also have up about who do you think is the best trio and receiving trio in football, as well as liking and commenting on your way out. Make sure you subscribe as well so you can get updates. I try to update all my channels as fast as I possibly can. It's really difficult, especially now with all this stuff about to come out. I've got 30 days now. All of a sudden, now I've got 32 teams. I've got to go down their records, and I also have to rank the divisions as from the toughest to the weakest, and also go to my Carolina Panther page, Growling and Prowling. I haven't forgotten about you guys. Amidst the new news about Justin Houston, we also had some news about Brian Burns, so you guys stay tuned for that. I also talk like a champion. We've had some recruiting news as well as some updates as far as battles within the fall camp, if you will. I can't say fall camp, it's not fall yet, it's still summer, it's hot as heck. At Talk Like a Champion. And I keep saying this, but Gridiron Gab Triple Option is about to premiere. The first show is going to be about the top 25, who I think should be in there, who I think should not, who are the ones that are left out and the ones who shouldn't be left out. It's going to premiere really, really soon, guys. And Hardwood Smack will be premiering soon. I'm about to be in full swing. It's about to be in full swing, and it's not even fall yet. But until next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.